Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
AHS is engaged in a public deception, telling the public that this order applies to them when it doesn't, on the plain wording of the order, and that this will all get sorted out at trial.
Wonderful. So effectively what you're saying is if they are going to stipulate that these charges or this order applies to Tim Stevens, by every logical metric, they should be throwing Jason Kenney, Tyler Shandro, and most Albertans in prison along with him.
That's right, because those orders apply to him, and that's the double standard that's going on right now. You have politicians who thumb their nose at these orders, but Jason Kenney and Tyler Shandro, who are they're thin-skinned despots at this point, I don't think it's too strong of a word, are using this order to crack down on dissenters with respect to the health orders.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News, and we have an update on the legal status of Pastor Tim Stevens. I hopped on a phone call with Jay Cameron from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and he gave us an update on the situation, the grounds for the arrest, and some of the details regarding the defense of Pastor Tim Stevens moving forward.
So I now have Jay Cameron on the line with me from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Thanks for joining me, Jay. If you could give me a quick update, there's a little bit of confusion because there was a number of outdoor gatherings where worship was occurring. I believe arrest occurred because of the June 6th gathering. Is that correct?
He's been arrested, and what the grounds that these guys AHS is saying is because he was served with the amended order of Rook. And so, I mean, that order, the important thing is, Adam, is that order does not apply to him. That order applies only to the Whistle Stop Cafe and people acting under its instruction or in concert with them. And so Alberta Health Services is deceiving the public and twisting that order in order to arrest people who they say have notice of it. Now, of course, I want to point out that the health minister, Tyler Shandro, the premier, and members of his cabinet and other MLAs who have been seen in public, they all have notice of that order as well. But that order cannot be stretched to the general public. That's not the plain wording of the order. And so our position is that Pastor Stevens has been wrongfully arrested, that AHS is engaged in a public deception, telling the public that this order applies to them when it doesn't, on the plain wording of the order, and that this will all get sorted out at trial.
Wonderful. So effectively what you're saying is if they are going to stipulate that these charges or this order applies to Tim Stevens, by every logical metric, they should be throwing Jason Kenney, Tyler Shandro, and most Albertans in prison along with him.
That's right, because those orders apply to him, and that's the double standard that's going on right now. You have politicians who thumb their nose at these orders, but Jason Kenney and Tyler Shandro, who are they're thin-skinned despots at this point, I don't think it's too strong of a word, are using this order to crack down on dissenters with respect to the health orders. They're not punishing all the people out on the weekend who may or may not have notice of the order. But what they're doing is that they're punishing people who are refusing to bend the knee to the COVID narrative and refusing to bend the knee to Alberta Health Services. And that's why Pastor Stevens is in jail, because they're cracking down on dissenters, just like the Chinese.
And so just for clarification, for those who are wondering, the May 6th order was the original order under which Pastor Artur Pawlowski and Pastor Tim were both arrested originally. On May 13th, the Justice Center challenged for clarification, and that is the new May 13th order. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the May 13th order was amended by Associate Chief Justice Rook to remove the words of general application that extended that May 6th order to the public. So those words don't exist anymore, and so the order only applies to those acting with the whistle stop or in concert with them or on their instruction. That is, on its face, the plain meaning of John and Jane Doe. Which is who the order applies to. It does not extend to anybody in the public with notice of the order.
So what then is the logic of authorities serving notice on orders that don't apply to people and then hauling them away to jail, particularly this targeted attack towards Christian pastors? It seems only Christian pastors are being thrown in prison.
This is an opportunity for people in power to hammer dissenters, people who do not conform to their narrative, who have not bent to the knee to the draconian health orders. It's the same thing like what happened in Manitoba this past weekend. You have Maxime Bernier arrested for speaking at a rally, but you had the beaches in Winnipeg wide open and the police there doing absolutely nothing. And the reason they're doing nothing is because nobody's saying anything against the health orders. If somebody all of a sudden starts talking publicly about the health orders and how stupid they are, then out come the ticket books and people end up in jail.
And this is just, like you said, Chinese style, totalitarian example making. We know Tyler Shandro has been involved in the specific targeting and discrimination. Was there much historical precedence for, in Alberta anyways, for laws being passed and then having them only apply to certain select people or people who are standing in opposition?
Yeah, there's just no reason to be on these search missions for Christian pastors who have not bent the knee to the Kenney government. The province of Alberta is going to be open in 2 weeks' time. We're 3 weeks away from a massive rodeo party, the Calgary Stampede, but Pastor Stevens is in jail for holding a church service. It's nonsensical. It is an exemplification of tyrannical, arbitrary government and a government that is out of control and drunk on power.
Well, I thank you very much for your work. Thank you to the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms for standing up alongside us in this fight for fundamental freedoms. Any closing remarks to perhaps the authorities who are pursuing Tim Stevens and other worshipers in this province?
Yeah, I would say to them, they were elected to uphold the Constitution and protect the civil liberties of Albertans. And instead of that, they're using unelected health tyrants to punish people for the exercise of their civil liberties and the engagement of innocent activities. This has nothing to do with safeguarding public health. This has to do with crushing dissent. And it's clear more and more every day.
Well, I want to thank Jay for that update. It's important that we have the facts straight on these stories. Pastor Tim Stevens, as you know now, once again in prison. We're going to follow the story as it develops. We're going to touch base again with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms as well as with the Stevens family and continue to bring you those updates on this important story. Thank you for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. Pastor Tim Stevens is very lucky to have exceptional representation from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. But he's not the only pastor facing persecution right now. Pastor Artur Pawlowski, as you well know, is facing a serious court date coming up on June 28th. He needs all the help he can get. So if you're able to make a contribution, go to saveartur.com.